The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chambers glittered under the light of three suns. Inside, over 200 alien species gathered in rising tiers of seats, their forms ranging from crystalline beings to gaseous entities contained in special environmental suits. The chamber's usual quiet murmur had transformed into a tense buzz of voices as Councillor Tahoe Park stood at the central podium. Tahoe's normally perfect posture showed signs of strain. His silver diplomatic uniform was slightly wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. He had spent the last 3 days analyzing the data, hoping he was wrong. But the evidence was undeniable. "Honorable representatives," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected a massive fleet approaching from the outer rim. The energy signatures match those of the Vorkath." He paused as fearful whispers swept through the chamber. "Based on their current trajectory and speed, they will reach populated systems within 2 standard months." In the Earth section, Ambassador He-Jin Kim watched the other representatives' reactions. Some species physically recoiled at the mention of the Vorkath. Others began rapid discussions with their aides. The Vorkath weren't just another aggressive species. They were planet killers who consumed entire civilizations, breaking down all organic matter into fuel for their massive bioships. The Centaurian representative, a tall crystalline being named First Light of Dawn, rose to speak. "We must follow proper procedures," it chimed, its voice creating harmonics that made several species adjust their universal translators. "I propose we form a committee to study the appropriate diplomatic responses." He-Jin kept her face carefully neutral as more representatives joined in, each suggesting various committees, subcommittees, and review boards. 20 years of serving as Earth's ambassador had taught her patience, but it had also shown her the Council's greatest weakness, its inability to act quickly. The Meraxian delegate, covered in iridescent scales, suggested a 6-month study of historical Vorkath engagement patterns. The Willaxian representative wanted to establish a cultural exchange program, a gaseous hydrogen being proposed creating a welcome ceremony to show peaceful intentions. As the debate droned on, He-Jin discreetly touched the small implant behind her left ear. The neural interface activated silently, connecting her to Earth's secure quantum communications network. She composed her message carefully. "Priority Alpha. Vorkath fleet detected. Council paralyzed by standard procedures. Recommend immediate activation of Protocol Watchman. Sending sensor data. Time is critical. Ambassador Kim." She added the sensor readings Tahoe had shared and transmitted the package. Earth had prepared for this possibility ever since joining the Galactic Council, while other species had grown dependent on the Council's protection and bureaucracy. Humanity had maintained its independent military capabilities, hidden in plain sight as research vessels and trading ships. The Aldebaran representative was now suggesting they send a strongly worded letter of concern when He-Jin's neural implant vibrated with an incoming message. The response was brief. "Protocol Watchman activated. Stand by for further instructions. Maintain normal diplomatic presence." He-Jin allowed herself a small smile. While the Council would spend weeks debating the proper color of paper for their letter of concern, Earth's fleets were already moving into position. It wasn't that humans were naturally warlike. They had simply learned through bitter experience that sometimes action had to come before perfect consensus. The debate continued as the day wore on. He-Jin noticed Tahoe watching her with knowing eyes. As a fellow human, he understood what was already in motion. They had both seen this pattern before. The Council would debate until the threat was at their doorstep, and then panic when it was too late for an effective response. But this time would be different. This time, humanity wasn't going to wait for permission to defend not just Earth, but all civilized space. The Vorkath were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating species they considered primitive and predictable. As the first session finally ended, He-Jin gathered her notes and stood. Around her, representatives were still arguing about committee membership and procedural requirements. None of them noticed the small smile on her face as she left the chamber. By the time they finished their first round of debates, humanity would already be ready for war. The three suns were setting as she walked to her transport, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Somewhere out there, Earth's fleets were moving into position, readying themselves for the battle to come. The council might not approve, but He Jin knew that sometimes it was better to ask forgiveness than permission, especially when billions of lives hung in the balance. The vast bridge of the EFS Dauntless hummed with quiet efficiency as Fleet Admiral Du Young studied the holographic display floating before him. Stars and planetary systems rotated slowly in the air, with red markers showing the projected path of the Vorkath fleet. His weathered face reflected the blue glow of the display as he considered their options. "Show me the defense grid coverage again," he commanded. The hologram shifted, overlaying green networks across key sectors of space. These weren't the official defense stations that the Galactic Council knew about. These were humanity's secret line of defense, hidden in plain sight for the past 15 years. Behind him, officers moved quietly between their stations, monitoring the countless systems that kept the massive warship running. The Dauntless was officially registered as a deep space research vessel, but its true nature was far different. Beneath its civilian-looking exterior lay the most advanced weapons systems humanity had ever developed. "Admiral, we're receiving an update from Captain Song," his communications officer reported. "She's beginning her briefing with our allies." Do Young nodded. In a secure conference room several decks below, Captain Jae-won Song was about to reveal part of humanity's carefully guarded secret to their most trusted alien allies. It was a calculated risk, but one they had planned for. In that conference room, Captain Song faced an unusual gathering. A Rigelian crystal being floated in its containment field, its facets reflecting the light in complex patterns. Beside it, a massive Tauran warrior sat uncomfortably in a reinforced chair, while two Proximan energy forms hovered nearby in their containment spheres. These representatives came from species that had always treated humanity with respect, even when others dismissed them as primitives. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels," Jae-won began, activating her own holographic display. "Earth has maintained independent military capability since joining the Council. We've hidden them as research stations, trading posts, and civilian ships." The aliens showed various signs of surprise. The Rigelian's crystals chimed softly, while the Tauran's scales shifted color. G1 continued, bringing up detailed tactical displays. "The Vorkath aren't just raiders, they're methodical. Based on their previous attacks, we've identified their most likely first target." She highlighted an agricultural world near the rim. "The planet harvests 7, rich in organic materials, minimal defenses, and far enough from major council forces that they can digest it before anyone responds." Back on the bridge, Du Young received real-time updates from the briefing. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Earth's military structure had remained intact even after joining the Council, disguised under civilian titles and operations. Every research station was a fortress. Every survey ship, a warship in disguise. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "the 7th Fleet reports they're in position near Harvest 7. All ships maintaining civilian cover protocols." Do Young allowed himself a small smile. While the Council debated, humanity had already moved their forces into defensive positions throughout the sector. Years of maintaining the facade of a mostly demilitarized species were about to pay off. In the conference room, Jae-won was showing their allies the true extent of Earth's preparations. "These are our current fleet positions," she explained, as green dots appeared throughout the sector. "We've maintained these forces in secret because we knew someday they would be needed." The Tauran warrior, General Kroll, rumbled in appreciation. "Clever. Very clever. You hide your fangs until they are needed." "Precisely," Jae-won agreed. "And now we need your help. Your species can help maintain our cover while we move more forces into position. The Council cannot know until it's too late for them to interfere. The Proximant energy forms pulsed in what she had learned was their version of agreement. They had always understood humanity better than most, perhaps because they too knew what it was like to be underestimated. As the briefing continued below, Du Young received another update on the bridge. More ships were moving into position, all maintaining their civilian disguises. Earth had spent years developing weapons specifically designed to combat the Vorkath's bioships. Now they would finally see if their preparations had been enough. Send word to all fleet commanders, he ordered. Maintain civilian protocols but begin final combat preparations. When the Vorkath arrive, I want every ship ready to drop their disguise and fight. The pieces were falling into place. While the Council wrapped itself in procedures and debates, humanity's hidden fleets were preparing for war. They would not seek permission to defend their fellow species. They would not wait for authorization to save lives. They would act, as humanity had always done when faced with a crisis. Do-Young looked out at the stars through the bridge's viewport. Somewhere out there, the Vorkath were approaching, confident in their superior technology and biological weapons. They had no idea they were sailing into a trap years in the making. Humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The sky over Lumina turned crimson as the Vorkath bioships breached the atmosphere. Their massive forms, looking like twisted combinations of flesh and metal, cast dark shadows over the golden wheat fields below. The peaceful agricultural world had seemed like perfect prey, isolated, minimal defenses, and rich in organic matter to consume. From his command chair aboard the ESS Thunderbolt, Commodore Min Ki Choi watched the Vorkath deployment with cold calculation. His fleet had been hiding in the system's asteroid belt, their energy signatures masked by special dampening fields. Now, as the enemy committed to their attack pattern, he saw exactly what he had been waiting for. All ships, power up combat systems, he ordered, his voice steady and calm. Drop civilian transponder signals. Weapon systems online. Show them who we really are. Across the system, seemingly harmless research vessels and cargo ships transformed. Hidden weapon ports opened, civilian markings dissolved to reveal military insignia, and powerful engines flared to life. The Vorkath's sensor arrays detected the sudden change, but it was already too late. All ships, engage at will. Min Ki commanded. Execute battle plan Theta. Hit them hard and fast. The words had barely left his mouth when humanity's hidden fleet struck. The ESS Thunderbolt led the charge, its specialized weapons targeting the largest bioship. Streams of engineered bacteria, designed specifically to attack Vorkath organic technology, sprayed from its forward arrays. The bioship's outer hull began to dissolve almost immediately, its living armor crying out in frequencies the human sensors could barely detect. Multiple hits confirmed, his tactical officer reported. Their biological shields are failing exactly as our simulations predicted. The Vorkath responded with their own attacks, launching waves of smaller combat organisms, but Earth's ships were ready. Point defense lasers fired with surgical precision, while electromagnetic pulses disrupted the neural networks that controlled the alien weapons. Min Ki watched as his fleet executed maneuvers that had been practiced in secret for years. Ships moved in complex patterns that looked chaotic, but were carefully designed to confuse the Vorkath's organic targeting systems. Each vessel acted as part of a larger whole, supporting and protecting each other with practiced precision. "Sir, the enemy is attempting to regroup," his executive officer reported. "They're trying to form their standard digestive formation." "Not today," Min Ki replied. "Execute Maneuver 7. Let's show them why you don't underestimate humans." The Earth fleet split into 3 groups, executing a complex dance that had never been seen in galactic combat before. While the Vorkath relied on overwhelming force and biological absorption, humanity had developed tactics that turned the alien strengths against them. Small, fast attack ships darted between the massive bioships, delivering precise strikes at vulnerable points. Larger vessels provided covering fire with weapons specifically designed to disrupt the enemy's biological systems. The Vorkath's usual tactic of surrounding and consuming their prey was rendered useless by the constant movement of Earth's forces. On the surface of Lumina, farmers watched in amazement as the battle unfolded above them. What had seemed like certain doom transformed into an impressive display of military precision. The supposedly primitive humans were systematically taking apart one of the most feared forces in the galaxy. "Sir, enemy ships are attempting to retreat," the tactical officer announced. "Their largest vessel has suffered critical damage to its neural core." Min-Ki allowed himself a small smile. "Maintain pursuit. Don't let them escape to warn the main fleet. This is our chance to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't need permission to defend what's right." The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. When the last Vorkath ship fell, the space above Lumina was littered with the dissolving remains of their bioships. Earth's fleet had suffered only minor damage, their months of preparation and years of training paying off exactly as planned. "Send word to Fleet Command," Min-Ki ordered. "First engagement successful. Enemy force completely neutralized. No civilian casualties." He paused, looking at the peaceful planet below. "And send a message to the Council. Tell them that Earth stands ready to protect all species, whether they ask for it or not." As his crew began damage assessment and recovery operations, Min-Ki knew this was just the beginning. The main Vorkath fleet was still out there, but now they would know that humanity was not the primitive species they had assumed. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most effective defense came from those who didn't wait for permission to act. In the wheat fields below, farmers began to emerge from their shelters, looking up at the Earth ships that had saved their world. They had never seen these vessels before, had never known that humans maintained such military power. But they were grateful, and word of humanity's secret strength would soon spread across the galaxy. The battle above Lumina would indeed become legendary, but not just for its tactical brilliance. It would be remembered as the day humanity stepped out of the shadows, proving that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who act when others only talk. The elegant council chamber, usually a place of ordered discussion, had descended into absolute chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted, gestured, and in some cases emitted warning pheromones or electrical discharges. The news of Earth's hidden military power and their unauthorized intervention at Lumina had shattered centuries of diplomatic protocol. Ambassador Wu Jin Kang stood at the central podium, her silver diplomatic uniform pristine, her posture straight and unwavering. Unlike her predecessor, He Jin Kim, who had maintained a softer approach, Wu Jin faced the anger of the council with direct, unflinching calm. "The footage you have just witnessed shows Earth's defense of Lumina," she stated, her voice cutting through the chaos. "While this chamber debated the formation of committees, our forces acted. Because of that action, billions of lives were saved." The Centaurian representative's crystalline form vibrated with outrage. "This is unprecedented. Earth has maintained illegal military forces, hidden weapons of mass destruction, and acted without council authorization. We acted because someone had to." Wu Jin replied firmly. "While you debated, worlds would have burned. While you discussed proper procedures, the Vorkath would have consumed entire populations. We chose to act rather than talk." The chamber erupted again. The elder species, who had dominated council politics for centuries, were particularly vocal in their condemnation. But Wu Jin noticed something interesting. Many of the younger species remained quiet, watching with calculating eyes. In a private chamber adjacent to the main hall, Commander Sunmei Park found herself surrounded by representatives from these younger species. The Proxians, Rigelians, and several others had requested an immediate private briefing on Earth's military capabilities. "Your ships moved like nothing we've ever seen," the Proxian delegate said, their translator struggling to contain their excitement. "The coordination, the tactics. How long have you been preparing for this?" Sunmai activated a small holographic display. showing simplified versions of Earth's battle formations. "Since the day we joined the Council," she explained, "we knew that someday bureaucracy would fail to protect us. So we prepared, we trained, and we waited." The other representatives leaned forward, their attention fully focused on her explanations. These were species that had joined the Council more recently, who had felt the frustration of being dismissed by the elder races. Back in the main chamber, Wu Jin faced another wave of accusations. The Aldebaran representative, their gaseous forms swirling with agitation, demanded immediate sanctions against Earth. Others called for the dismantling of Earth's military forces. "Before you vote on sanctions," Wu Jin said calmly, "consider this. The Vorkath main fleet is still coming. Earth's forces are currently the only ones prepared to fight them. Would you disarm your only effective defense because we failed to file the proper paperwork?" Her words caused a subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. Even the most outraged representatives couldn't deny the truth. Earth had succeeded where the Council had failed. They had stopped the Vorkath attack, while the Council was still debating whether to send a strongly worded letter. In the private chamber, Sun Mai noticed more representatives quietly slipping in to listen. She explained Earth's tactical doctrine, showing how smaller, more mobile forces could overcome seemingly superior enemies through coordination and surprise. "We don't believe in overwhelming force," she explained. "We believe in smart force, applied at the right moment, in the right way. That's how we defeated the Vorkath at Lumina." The Rigelian representative's crystalline form sparkled with interest. Would Earth be willing to share this knowledge? To teach others? Before Sun Mai could answer, another wave of shouting erupted from the main chamber. But now there was a different tone to it. Several of the younger species had begun speaking in Earth's defense, arguing that results mattered more than procedures. The old order was beginning to crack. Species that had chafed under centuries of bureaucratic paralysis saw in Earth an alternative. A way of taking action without waiting for endless debates and committees. Wu Jin watched this shift with careful attention. This was exactly what Earth's strategists had predicted. Their actions would divide the Council, but would also attract allies who shared their frustration with diplomatic gridlock. "Earth stands ready to defend all peaceful species," she announced. "We will not ask permission to save lives. We will not wait for approval to protect the innocent. Those who wish to join us in this endeavor are welcome. Those who prefer endless debate can continue their discussions while we act." As the session ended, representatives broke into small groups, speaking in hushed tones. The political landscape of the galaxy was shifting, and everyone knew it. Earth had shown there was another way, and many were ready to follow their lead. The old order might have been cracking, but something new and perhaps stronger was beginning to emerge. A galaxy where action spoke louder than words, where the defense of life took precedence over proper procedures. The diplomatic fallout was just beginning, but it would reshape galactic society forever. The massive Vorkath invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace in a wave of distorted reality, their bioships casting enormous shadows across the stars. Their forces had gathered in numbers never before seen in recorded history, filling the space around the Centauri border sectors with their nightmarish forms. They expected to find the same disorganized response they had always encountered. They were wrong. Secretary of Defense Hyun Woo-yoon stood in Earth's military command center, watching as hundreds of green dots appeared on the strategic display. Each dot represented a ship from their newly formed coalition. Earth vessels fighting alongside Proximan energy cruisers, Rigelian crystal ships, and vessels from 24 other species who had chosen to stand with humanity. "All coalition forces report ready," his aide announced. "Vice Admiral Kwan's fleet is in position." Hyun Woo nodded, his face illuminated by the holographic displays. The last 3 months had been spent in secret meetings, rapid training sessions, and carefully coordinated preparations. While the Council continued to debate sanctions against Earth, he had been building an army. Aboard the flagship ESS Valiant, Vice Admiral Jin Ho Kwan watched the Vorkath fleet's approach. His bridge crew worked alongside alien officers, their stations modified to accommodate different physiologies. What had started as a human initiative had grown into something much larger. Coalition Fleet, this is Admiral Kwan. He broadcast to all ships. Execute Battle Plan Delta. Remember your training. Fight smart. Fight together. Protect each other. The response was immediate. Ships that had trained together for months moved as one. Earth vessels led the charge, their advanced weapons blazing paths through the Vorkath lines. Proximan energy ships followed, their exotic weapons disrupting the bioship's neural networks. Rigelian vessels provided covering fire with crystalline beam weapons that cut through organic armor like paper. The Vorkath reacted with surprise, their usual tactics disrupted by the unexpected coordination of their prey. They attempted to form their traditional attack patterns, but each time they were met with precisely targeted counterattacks. Target their command nodes, Jin Ho ordered. Don't let them establish their hive mind links. Keep them divided and confused. Earth's tactical doctrine had been adapted to work with each species' unique abilities. The Proximan's energy weapons proved devastatingly effective against the Vorkath's biological technology. Rigelian crystal ships could absorb and redirect the enemy's biological attacks. Even the smallest coalition vessels played crucial roles in the carefully choreographed battle plan. In the command center, Hyunwoo received updates from across the battlefield. Sir, the Vorkath are attempting to regroup in Sector 7, an officer reported. Direct the Proximan Third Fleet to that sector, he ordered. Don't let them reorganize. The battle stretched across an entire star system. For the first time, the Vorkath faced an enemy that didn't just fight back, but fought smarter. Their biological advantages, so overwhelming against individual species, were systematically countered by the Coalition's combined arms approach. A massive Vorkath command ship attempted to launch its consuming tendrils at a group of smaller vessels. But before it could strike, Rigelian crystal ships focused their beams on the tendrils, shattering them. Earth vessels followed up with precise strikes at the exposed weak points, while Proximan ships disrupted its attempt to call for reinforcements. Sir, Jin Ho's tactical officer called out, we're detecting energy fluctuations in the enemy fleet. They appear to be retreating. The bridge crew fell silent. The Vorkath had never retreated before. They had always fought until either they or their prey were completely destroyed. Yet now, faced with an enemy they couldn't overwhelm or consume, they were pulling back. Confirm that reading, Jin Ho ordered, his voice steady despite the historic moment. Across the battlefield, coalition forces pressed their advantage. The Vorkath retreat turned into a rout as ship after ship pulled into hyperspace. Those too damaged to escape were quickly surrounded and neutralized by combined coalition forces. In the command center, Hyunwoo allowed himself a small smile. Send word to all coalition forces, he ordered. The Vorkath are retreating. Maintain pursuit, but do not overextend. This is just the beginning. The battle had lasted less than 6 hours, but its impact would be felt for generations. The elder races of the Council, watching from their safe distances, saw their assumptions about humanity and the younger species shattered. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted irrevocably. As the coalition forces secured the battlefield, Jin Ho received congratulatory messages from ships of every species. They had done more than win a battle. They had proven that cooperation and decisive action could overcome any threat, no matter how ancient or powerful. The Vorkath had finally met an enemy they couldn't defeat, not because of superior technology or numbers, but because they had faced species willing to stand together and fight back. The galaxy would never be the same, and the next phase of the war was about to begin. The Coalition Command Center, built inside an asteroid near the galactic core, buzzed with activity as representatives from 30 different species worked together. At the center of it all stood General Soo-Jin Lee, studying a massive holographic display showing the positions of both Coalition and Vorkath forces across known space. Another victory in the Orient sector, her aide reported. updating the display to show the latest battle results. Green markers replaced red ones as coalition forces pushed the Vorkath back from yet another star system. Su-Jin nodded, her eyes tracking the movement of fleet formations. What had started as a desperate alliance had grown into the most effective fighting force the galaxy had ever seen. Species that once barely spoke to each other now fought side by side, their unique abilities complementing each other in ways no one had imagined possible. In the training center several decks below, Colonel Tai Yun-cho watched as a mixed crew of aliens ran through combat simulations. A crystalline Regelian operated the weapons station, its faceted appendages moving with newfound precision. A gaseous Aldebaran handled navigation, while a massive Tauran managed engineering. Again, Tai Yun called out as the simulation ended. Remember, you don't just react to the enemy. You think ahead, you move together, you create opportunities. The alien crew started another run. This time, their movements were smoother, more coordinated. They were learning Earth's combat doctrine, not just the techniques, but the mindset that made them effective. Back in the command center, Su-Jin received word that another species had requested to join the coalition. The Xanthians, an old and proud race that had once dismissed humans as barely civilized, now wanted to learn from them. Their ambassador is waiting in the diplomatic sector, her aide informed her. They'd brought technical data on their ships and weapons, offering full integration into our command structure. Things had changed dramatically since the first major victory against the Vorkath. The coalition's success had proven that Earth's approach to warfare, flexible, adaptive, and cooperative, was more effective than the rigid hierarchies of the older species. In the training center, Tai Yun watched with pride as her alien students completed their simulation with their best score yet. "You see," she said, reviewing the results with them. "Victory isn't about having the strongest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about how well you work together, how quickly you can adapt." The Regelian's crystals chimed in agreement, while the Tauran rumbled appreciatively. They had all seen the results in real combat. Coalition forces consistently outperformed their Vorkath opponents, despite often being outnumbered. News arrived of another Vorkath retreat, this time from a heavily fortified position they had held for weeks. The coalition's combined fleet had used tactics developed by Earth's military strategists, adapted to take advantage of each species' unique capabilities. "They're learning," Su-Jin remarked to her staff as they reviewed the battle footage. "Not just our tactics, but our way of thinking. That's what will win this war." The coalition's rapid growth had surprised even its founders. Species that had been bitter rivals for centuries now worked together, sharing resources and knowledge. Earth's training programs had become the standard across the alliance, with modifications made to accommodate different physiologies and cultural approaches. In one of the station's diplomatic halls, representatives from newly joined species attended orientation briefings. They learned about Earth's military history, studying how a relatively young species had developed such effective combat doctrines. "Humans have always had to adapt," Tai Yun explained to a group of new recruits. "We've never been the strongest or most advanced. We survived by being smarter, by working together, by finding new ways to solve problems." The Vorkath, faced with this unprecedented resistance, had been forced to change their strategy. Their usual tactic of overwhelming force no longer worked against the coordinated coalition defense. For the first time in their history, they were learning what it meant to fear their prey. Su-Jin reviewed reports from the front lines. Coalition forces had pushed the Vorkath back from 3 major sectors in the past month alone. Their previously unstoppable advance had been turned into a fighting retreat, their biological technology proving vulnerable to the combined weapons and tactics of the allied species. "We're not just winning battles," she told her command staff during their daily briefing. "We're changing how the galaxy thinks about warfare, about cooperation, about what's possible when different species work together." The coalition continued to grow, its influence spreading beyond military matters. Species that had joined for protection found themselves forming economic and cultural bonds. The rigid hierarchies of the old Galactic Council were being replaced by something more dynamic, more inclusive. As another day in the command center drew to a close, Su-Jin looked out at the stars through the station's viewport. The Vorkath were still out there, still dangerous, but no longer invincible. Humanity had shown the galaxy a new way forward, and there would be no going back to the old ways of isolation and inaction. The future would belong to those who could work together, adapt quickly, and take decisive action. The coalition was more than just an alliance. It was the beginning of a new era in galactic history, and humanity was leading the way. Light streamed through the vast, crystalline dome of the new council chambers, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. The architecture itself symbolized the changes that had swept through galactic society. Open, transparent, and designed for action rather than endless debate. Fleet Admiral Du Young Lee stood at the central podium, his dress uniform bearing both Earth's insignia and the new symbol of the Combined Defense Force. The final battle against the Vorkath had ended just 3 weeks ago, their last bioships destroyed in a coordinated assault that demonstrated the full power of galactic unity. "We gather here not just to celebrate victory," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "but to embrace a new way forward. The Vorkath taught us that the galaxy's greatest strength lies not in our individual powers, but in our ability to act together." In the diplomatic section, Ambassador Wu Jin Kang prepared to sign the new Charter of Action. The document represented a complete reformation of galactic governance. Gone were the endless committees and subcommittees that had paralyzed decision-making for centuries. The Charter established rapid response protocols, joint defense initiatives, and most importantly, the right of member species to take immediate action in defense of others. Earth's Act First, Apologize Later philosophy had been refined into a doctrine of responsible initiative. From her honored position in the Observer's Gallery, retired Ambassador He Jin Kim watched with quiet pride. She remembered the early days, when humanity had been dismissed as reckless and primitive. Now those same qualities, decisiveness, adaptability, and willingness to act, were being enshrined as galactic virtues. The signing ceremony began. One by one, representatives approached the central platform. Species that had once been bitter rivals now stood together, their differences set aside in the face of a greater purpose. Even the eldest races, who had initially resisted change most strongly, had come to appreciate the new order. "Let the record show," Wu Jin declared as she signed, "that from this day forward, we are all guardians of peace. The time of waiting for permission to do what is right is over." Do Young presented the military reorganization plan. The Combined Defense Force would incorporate ships and crews from all member species, training them in the tactics that had proven so effective against the Vorkath. Earth's combat doctrine had evolved, enriched by the unique perspectives and abilities of their allies. In the gallery, He Jin noticed representatives from the younger species watching with particular attention. They had been the first to join Earth's coalition, the first to recognize that survival required action rather than debate. Now they were full partners in galactic leadership. The ceremony continued as speakers from various worlds shared their experiences. A Regelian crystal being described how cooperation had revealed strengths they never knew they possessed. A Proximan energy form spoke of the power of unified purpose. A Tauran warrior praised the elegance of Earth's tactical doctrines. Wu Jin rose again to present the final protocols. "We establish today not just a new council, but a new way of thinking. We will face future threats not with fear and hesitation, but with courage and unity. We will act when action is needed, decide when decisions are required, and stand together against any challenge." The chamber erupted in approval, each species expressing support in their own way. Light displays, harmonic resonances, pheromone releases, and traditional applause blending into a symphony of unity. He Jin thought back to that first council session, when news of the Vorkath approach had sparked only debate. How far they had come since then. Humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the wisest choice was simply to act, to do what needed to be done, and sort out the details later. As the ceremony concluded, Du Young made one final announcement. The Combined Defense Force's first mission would be to establish rapid response bases throughout the galaxy. Never again would a threat like the Vorkath find them unprepared. The new council chambers slowly emptied, but the sense of purpose remained. The galaxy had been transformed not by force or technology, but by the simple human principle that action speaks louder than words. The next threat, whatever it might be, would face not a divided galaxy paralyzed by procedure, but a unified civilization ready to defend itself. He-Jin smiled as she watched the younger representatives already forming working groups, planning joint exercises, discussing cooperative ventures. The future she had dreamed of was becoming reality. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy had not been their weapons or tactics, but their willingness to take that first crucial step, to act when action was needed. The stars shone brightly through the crystal dome, a reminder of both the vastness of space and the new unity that would protect it. The galaxy was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, standing together in a new age of decisive action and shared purpose.